let's talk about Trump. So Trump had a press gaggle, and the big news about Trump, in addition to the tariffs, is Trump is supposedly thinking about running for a third term. Let me say that again. Trump is supposedly thinking about running for a third term. Let's go ahead and see what he had to say about Russia. Let's see what he had to say about tariffs a little bit. And then let's also deep dive into whether or not he would actually run for a third term. Let's figure it out.
So this is a big week for the Trump administration. You've got new tariffs expected to go into effect Wednesday. And President Trump also says he's looking for ways to serve a third term in office. He clarified Sunday that he is, quote, not joking and is exploring methods to do it despite the Constitution prohibiting such a thing.
I have had more people say, please run again. I said, we have a long way to go before we even think about that. But I've had a lot of people.
For more on this, let's bring in CBS News correspondent Natalie Brand live for us at the White House this morning. Natalie, good morning to you. A third presidential term is just not constitutional. So what does Mr. Trump mean here?
Yeah. Good morning to you, Errol. The 22nd Amendment states quite clearly that was added to the Constitution in 1951. It says no person shall serve more than 2 terms in the office of president. But these comments were made by President Trump during a phone interview with NBC News and Kristen Welker when he said that he is thinking about this, but he would not, Errol, really elaborate on the methods. Welker at one point said, well, could one possible scenario be that Vice President J.D. Vance runs and then essentially passes the baton if he were to win? And Trump said, you know, that's one way, but there's other ways. But again, he would not give details. But again, this is not constitutional. And as far as that scenario that I just mentioned, the 12th Amendment states that if you are ineligible to serve as vice president, then you can't be president either. As you just played there, Errol, though, the president did, upon returning to D.C. yesterday, he said, you know, this is still a long ways off and that his focus right now is on this term.
And separately.
All right, so let's pivot for a second. I'm going to give you all my thoughts, but I want to get the full context of everything that's being said. I always like to use multiple different sources before I deep dive into it. This was the actual press gaggle on Air Force One that Trump had, where he spoke about the different things that was happening in the economy, as well as the possibility of running for a third term.
We had a good time this weekend. We had a lot of very interesting things happen. I think we're making a lot of progress on Ukraine and Russia. It's always conflict, but I think we're making a lot of progress getting it stopped. We just want to see thousands of soldiers a week stop dying, because they're dying at numbers that probably haven't seen since the Second World War for no reason whatsoever. It's a shame. It's a shame. So I think we are making progress. Step by step, there's tremendous hatred between the leaders, if you call the whole situation leaders. But I think we'll get that done. And the Middle East, a lot of things are happening with respect to Iran. And we'll see if we can get something done. And if not, it's going to be a bad situation. Very, very bad.
Oil sanctions that you mentioned today, when will they start?
So we have a couple. We have the secondary tariffs on Iran, and we'll probably give it a couple of weeks. And if we don't see any progress, we're going to put them on. We're not putting them on right now, but if you remember, I did that 6 years ago, and it worked very well, to put it mildly. And if the election weren't rigged, you would have a situation where there would be no problem with Iran today. But it was. Biden didn't know what he was doing, obviously. And we have a very rough situation in the Middle East because of that. You ended up with October 7th, and you would have never had October 7th, and you would have never had Russia going into Ukraine likewise. But we're going to make a decision on secondary tariffs on Iran based on whether or not they're going to make a deal. If they're going to make a deal, then we're never going to put secondary tariffs on. We're going to hope they have a great, long, and successful life. as a country. But we'll see what happens. It's very interesting. I can't imagine them doing anything else but making a deal. I would prefer a deal to the other alternative, which I think everybody in this plane knows what that is. And that's not going to be pretty, and I do not prefer that.
So, Mr. President, on the tariffs, you said that you were at one point that the tariffs Tuesday would be more conservative than what people might think. There's reports that you are maybe now looking to make the tariffs higher. So are you weighing higher tariffs? Or
the tariffs will be far more generous than those countries were to us, meaning they will be kinder than those countries were to the United States of America over the decades. They ripped us off like no country's ever been ripped off in history. And we're going to be much nicer than they were to us, but it's substantial money for the country, nevertheless.
On the tariffs that you're planning, so you're expecting to hit something like 10 to 15 countries, is that right?
No.
All of the countries.
is it across the board?
Not 10. I don't know. Who told you 10 or 15 countries?
Well, we heard that. So we heard that you were going to aim for the 10%.
But you didn't hear it from me.
Okay, so
How do you get on Air Force One? That's the thing that I'm trying to figure out. Like, how do you become a part of the press that just travels on Air Force One with the president on a regular basis?
how many countries will be in that initial tranche?
You'd start with all countries, so let's see what happens. There are many countries involved.
On the Russia.
I haven't heard a rumor about 15 countries, 10 or 15.
So you're starting with all countries?
Well, essentially, all of the countries that we're talking about. Wouldn't be talking about all countries. It's not a cutoff. And if you look at the history and you look at what's happened to us, you go to certain places, go to Asia, and you take a look at every single country in Asia, what they've done to the United States in trade. And by the way, in military in a certain way. You look at, take a look at trade with Asia, and I wouldn't say anybody is treated as fairly or nicely, and but we are going to treat them. We're going to be much more generous to them in terms of heart. We're going to be much more generous than they were to us.
You said that you were not joking about a third term, about possibly wanting a third term. Does that mean you're not planning to leave office on January 20th?
I'm not looking at that, but I'll tell you, I have had more people ask me to have a third term, which is in a way a fourth term, because the other election, the 2020 election, was totally rigged. So it's actually sort of a fourth term in a certain way. I just don't want the credit for the second, because Biden was so bad, he did such a bad job. And I think that's one of the reasons that I'm popular, if you want to know the truth. I think I'm popular because we've done a great job. I think we've had the best almost 100 days of any president. And most people are saying that. And it's an honor. We're bringing back our country. We're respected as a country again. And we're strongly respected. And people are amazed. I was with some very important people today, and they said that they've never seen a turnaround of a country as fast as this. Even look at our border. We have nobody coming in. And you can come into our country, but you have to come in legally. But we have nobody coming in to our country. It's almost shut down. They've never seen anything like this.
So, well, let me see if he says anything else. Hold on.
An appropriate precedent.
Limits a president to 2 terms. Is it your understanding that they have to
I don't
be?
even want to talk about it. I'm just telling you, I have had more people say, please run again. They said, we have a long way to go before we even think about that. But I've had a lot of people.
So, you know, in this press gaggle in which he spoke directly to the people, he says that he's had a lot of people tell him that he should run for a third term. Now, this has been a thing that's been in the news, that's been, you know, under the radar and all of this other stuff for a long time. I didn't hear him directly say it. There's also another news report that speaks to it about Trump possibly running for a third term. This is what they're saying that he said to reporters on the phone.
I'm not joking. President Donald Trump on the record saying he's not ruling out another run for the White House, telling NBC News, quote, there are methods by which he could do it. Now, the president is limited to 2 terms by the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution, but that has not stopped President Trump from flirting with this idea before.
It will be the greatest honor of my life to serve not once, but twice, or 3 times, or 4 times. Headlines from the fake news. Now it will be to serve twice. Should I run again? You tell me.
It sounds like he's just trolling and that the left liberal news media is taking it too serious.
There's your controversy right there. There's your controversy.
CNN's Betsy Klein is live.
So if you actually pull up the Constitution, the 22nd Amendment within the Constitution is very clear. It's very clear. And you can go to constitution.congress.gov, and it is very clear exactly what this is. And it says, no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice, and no person who has held the office of the president or acted as president for more than 2 years of a term to which some other person was elected president shall be elected to the office of the president more than once. But this article shall not apply to any person holding office of the president when this article was proposed by Congress, meaning that when it was first ratified or it was first placed into our Constitution, that it wasn't applicable to that person then, and shall not prevent any person who may be holding office of the president or acting as president during the term within which this article becomes operative from holding the office of the president or acting as president during the remainder of such term. Section 2, this article shall be inoperative unless it shall have been ratified as an amendment to the Constitution by the legislatures of 3/4 of several states within 7 years from the date of its submission by the state of Congress. So essentially, the only thing that's applicable to this situation is this, right? Is that no person shall be elected to the office of president more than twice, and no person who has held the office of president or acted as president for more than 2 years of a term to which some other person was elected president shall be elected to the office of the president more than once. So essentially, the 22nd Amendment in the Constitution of the United States of America is saying that you cannot run and hold office more. You cannot be elected to office more than twice. So I'm not sure where they got this from. It sounds to me like Trump is just speaking and trolling people. One of the things that he said is that he actually won the office 3 times because he feels as though he didn't lose the 2020 election. And it is no way that Biden got over 80 million votes, the most in history in 2020. But I don't see it. It looks like he's trolling. It looks like he's keeping people in the loop. I don't see it. My personal opinion is that I believe that we should abide by the Constitution because we are a republic that is governed by our Constitution. And we use a democratic election process to determine who should be the representatives of Congress, who should be the representative of President of the United States of America, who should be in the House. Okay? I personally believe that we should have term limits on Congress. I think that Congress should only be able to serve 2 terms. Personally. I don't like this lifetime deal that Congress members get. I wish they would make an amendment to the Constitution to include that Congress should only be able to hold seats in Congress for 2 terms, a total of 8 years. It sounds like he was joking. It sounds like he was trolling. I'm not sure what they would be able to do in order to do it. Maybe they would do it the way that Obama did it, because Obama probably had 3 terms, and that, I think that Obama was probably president during Biden's 2021 through 2025 term. But it sounds like he's joking. It sounds like he's just trolling people. I'm not sure how they would be able to pull that off, but here's CNN's take on it.
In West Palm Beach tonight, Betsy, he said he's not joking when asked about this, then also said that it's too early to be talking about it. What more is he saying?
Yeah, Jessica, you're absolutely right that this is not the first time this has come up, albeit a little tongue-in-cheek as you just laid out. But President Trump openly talking about the prospect of seeking a third term in office, and he says this is not a joke. I want to read to you part of the transcript from the telephone interview he had with NBC News' Kristen Welker. Welker says, "Sir, I'm hearing you don't sound like you're joking. I've heard
We
you."
all know that Kristen Welker catches the bad end of every stick. So I'm also taking this, with a grain of salt also. But let's hear it.
Spoke about this a number of times, to which the president responds, no, I'm not joking. I'm not joking. The president goes on to say that there are methods on which he could seek a third term. Welker asked if it's possible that Vice President J.D. Vance gets elected and then passes the baton. The president indicated that that was an option, but he said there are others too. The president, of course, repeatedly said it is, quote, too early to think about it. Now, the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution.
All right, so my take on it, I don't need to hear any more of what they got to say about this. We can move on from this. My take on it personally, my opinion, I am a conservative. I am a Republican. I absolutely think that Trump is doing a phenomenal job inside of the United States of America right now. I do not want anybody, as well as a job that I think that Trump is doing within the first 100 days of his election, as well as a job as I think that J.D. Vance and all of his cabinet members are doing. They've had a couple of blunders, especially with the whole signal link, and I think that probably was made more of than it really was. But I actually disagree with the way that they handled that whole situation, and I think that Trump was very disappointed in that. I think that Trump is doing a much better job than he did in his first term. I think that he has the loyalty to support having all three branches of government and being able to get things done very quickly. I think is phenomenal. I think that they're doing a great job on immigration. No, I do not think that anybody should be able to run for a third term. And I know that there's going to be conservatives that feel some type of way about that. You're not loyal to the Republican Party. You're not loyal to MAGA. No, I'm loyal to the Constitution first. I'm loyal to America. If it was in the Constitution, or if it was possible for him to run a third term, if that wasn't an amendment inside of the Constitution that was added to where you could not run for a third term, then maybe we would evaluate that. But I think that every single office, the highest office of the land, should be term limits. And no, I do not think that Trump, first of all, I don't think that Trump should even consider running for a third time. I don't even think that should be a part of the conversation. But also, I don't believe that any president should do more than 8 years in office. I think that Trump should enjoy his years. I think that he should continue to be the businessman that he is after he leaves office. I think that his legacy will be absolutely awesome after he leaves. But I do not believe and I do not support a third term for anybody, including the Trump administration, for president of the United States of America. That's my thoughts. I think that the next up should be J.D. Vance. And I think that we should also embrace other people that are winning and that are doing really well. Byron Donalds. I like Byron Donalds down in Florida, him to be governor. I would love for Vivek Ramaswamy to be governor of Ohio. And I think that there are other people in the administration that is doing very well also that we should consider. But nope, I do not think at all, unless I actually hear it out of his mouth to say that he is trying to run for a third term, then we would take it more serious. As of right now, we are governed by the Constitution. And more importantly, I do not think that he should seek a third term. I do not think that anybody should be able to do a third term as president of the United States of America. So that's just me personally. I don't know what you guys think. I'm curious as to what y'all think.